Hello, hello. Hope you're having a wonderful day. This is another Skull Button devlog where I'm going to be talking about my game, VSCS-III. This video, I'm going to go into the main menu of the game. And right up front, you might be thinking, hey, you haven't actually finished the game yet. You have a lot left to do on the actual game part of the game. Why are you building the main menu? That seems like you're getting distracted. And to that I say, again, you can't tell me what to do. I can work on whatever I want. But the actual answer, because there is an actual answer, there's a reason I'm doing this, is I'm currently building out the game's save system. It's actually called the save system in the code. And that covers everything around serializing the save data, how the save data is structured when you save the game, and of course, the 3 different save slots, which you can see represented here, which, as we will see, is very similar to how they look on the actual main menu. And of course, when you're on the main menu, you get to pick which save slot you are loading. Then there's 1, 2, and 3, because the game has a 3 in its title. So you get 3 save slots. I don't know. It's what I did with the last game. I could add more if I wanted to, but this is a nice little, 1, 2, 3. So that's what I'm sticking with for now. I did get a little bit sidetracked, so I probably didn't need to design out the entire main menu and make it look super professional and design the game's actual game logo as a part of this. But I wanted to balance things out, and I'll kind of do that with these devlogs as well. So I'm going to have a technical devlog where I actually talk about the way I architected the save system, which will not be this video. This video is going to focus more on the actual visual appearance and how I wanted the player experience to be. So it's kind of 2 sides of the same coin there, but I'm going to split it up a little bit. So I was working on the technical side of things, and I got a little bored, so I wanted to not just write code and, draw diagrams and all this nonsense. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to make the main menu look really, really nice, because I'm going to have to look at it a lot while I'm switching between saves, and that'll keep me motivated. So let's get into it. Right here, I've got my little mock-up with my little icons, because I need them in every single video, my little logo. And hey, that's interesting. It looks like one of these save files has been selected, and there's a little arrow pointing at it that could potentially bob up and down. That might be interesting to explore in a second here. But let's take a little tangent and talk about what I just mentioned very briefly, which is the game's logo. Here we go. Ta-da! It's VSCS. It's Mark III. Exciting. Anyways, this is just a font I found that looks pseudo-professional. It's a little goofy. It's italicized. It's got the serifs, which makes it look very, I don't know, overly fancy. I've been doing some research into different typefaces and what works in a digital environment and what doesn't. And there was this trend in the Microsoft's Windows 3 era where they had serifs on the fonts, I believe. And serifs are interesting in a digital typeface because generally they do not communicate this idea of it being digital, right? Like generally when you see fonts that are considered digital or futuristic, they don't have serifs. But in this era of the 90s, you had this weird ooh, this is fancy. We've got serifs on our font. This is very professional. So I'm trying to capture that. So this is not the actual font that was used for instance, the Microsoft Windows splash screen. This is not the same font, but it is loosely similar. It's kind of going for that same vibe. And you'll notice there is a drop shadow on this, and also we've got those sandwiched, almost ice cream sandwich tricolors there that are very, very bright. And you'll notice we've got that drop shadow so that we can do that. Now you see why it's gray, is because this would go on a light gray background. I just don't have anything really here. Suppose this is on a blue background, we can change that drop shadow to be this nice darker teal. If we were changing what this text is on top of, we might want to change the color of that shadow to make it look very 3D. You'll see where I'm going with this in a moment. So let's scroll down a little bit again. And here's the actual big reveal. This is a mock-up, and I've got this on the left, which is just the same as what's in the middle here. But as I was just talking about, what I've decided to do with this logo is throw that mayfly Roman numeral 3 behind it, because you'll notice there was no 3.0 to the right there. I did do some mock-ups of that, but I didn't really like it. So I landed on just blowing up that Roman numeral 3 that you're seeing all over the place, throwing it behind the VSCS text, and ta-da, we've got this beautiful, beautiful three-dimensional looking image. And if we zoom in here a little bit, you can see I've changed the color of the shadow to make it look like it's really like overlaying on top of that background there. Let's see if I can get my layers right here. Yeah, so you can see the background is set to the specific color of what's on top, and if we were to just get rid of that, it is just that 3, and that applies to this text here. So a little bit complicated, a little bit messy, but I feel like once you zoom out, it really pops. So I made this mock-up and I thought I'm going to try and translate this into the game engine. And as discussed in a previous video, I did decide to, at least for now, land on gray save icons if there's nothing in that actual slot. And if the save file has been created with data, there's something loaded, it is going to turn green to indicate that. And then when you're on the main menu, my thought was I've got this little mayfly icon because it's not incorporated into the logo aside from that Roman numeral 3, but I wanted it in there somewhere, so I thought, actually, this makes a pretty good arrow, so what if it, like I said a second ago, what if it bobbed up and down to indicate that this is what was selected? So you know which save file you're on, because I'm not changing the color of the save file to indicate which one's selected. That indicates the content. But we've got this arrow that will tell you, hey, you're loading save file 1, or 2, or 3. And then we've got the start and delete buttons there as well, which eventually the delete should show a pop-up confirmation to say, are you sure you want to do that? And start should just load the game. Also these buttons, I'm getting a little bit too into the actual design of things here that you'll see in the engine in a moment, but hey, if you select a save file that doesn't have any content yet, you're not really starting, you're creating a new save and you can't delete, so we should hide that button. So just menu nonsense. But before we move on to the actual game engine, this is 210 pixels from the edge of the text here, and this is about, what are we at here? 201, and that's from the very end of that serif there. My point here is this is not actually fully centered. This text here is, but you'll notice if we line up both the title and the subtitle, this is fairly flush because that V is very straight vertical. But this right here is very much not. So the S, especially with that drop shadow, stretches out really far to the right because the drop shadow goes to the right. This is not centered strictly on the visual center of this page, this specifically the VSCS text here. It's not centered, but it kind of looks like it is. Like, I hope that when looking at it, you didn't go, wow, that's super off, but it is actually off by like 25 pixels or something. So I don't know. I just think that's interesting. I think it's interesting that you can slant the text and it's like, oh, this just kind of looks okay. I don't know. I don't really have a point there. It was just kind of driving me crazy. Okay, so let's jump into the game engine and I will show you the actual version of this, which hopefully should look shockingly similar to what I've got here. Okay, so we are in the actual game engine now, and you can see that this is pretty much what we just looked at, except obviously we've got a post-processing layer, but it should look very, very similar to what we just saw. And this is not just an actual straight image rip, this is the actual game, so we can click on these buttons. And as you see, we've got that bobbing mayfly sprite. I actually had a fun bug. This is not using actual Unity animations, it is actually just translating it up and down because I don't like using animations when I don't have to. It's just about implementation. But I had this fun bug where it would reset the movement up and down when you switched, so if you timed it right, maybe this is going to be hard to explain, but if you timed it right switching between these save icons, you could get the icon to move up and up and up and up and up, and that was a fun bug that thankfully I discovered very, very quickly. But yeah, we can select these saves. You can see at the bottom it says start a new game. It'll show us which save we have selected and could, in theory, show more data about it. If we say start new game, it will not play a cutscene or anything, but it probably will in the final product. And ta-da, now we can either continue or delete. If we delete, it just deletes it. This is actually messing with files on my computer. It does actually create a new save in my Steam files, actually, my app data files, which is very cool. I'll get into that in a future video. You can see we've got our very nice, very bright looking logo with that post-processing. We got a quit game button because that way you don't have to just hit Alt F4. And this panel, which I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with it, but I have some ideas. So for now, it's just like a debug panel, but it might make it into the final game. So this just opens up this little panel at the bottom here, which we can also close. And this button, which doesn't do anything just yet, my idea is that I want to be able to, and maybe this is a bad idea, but I'm doing it anyways, I want to be able to write the conversations, like the actual text conversations, the story of the game, inside of the game itself, using my own tools that I build. What I did in VSCS-II was I had my own Convo tool, which I should put some footage of up right here. I had my own conversation tool that I built, which was a Unity project, but it was a separate Unity project. And I used it to draw essentially flowcharts, so these directional graphs, that would then be translated into JSON and then interpreted by the game. And the long-term idea was I could swap out, stories, and I could make a new story, or people could mod the game. And I never ended up really supporting that, but I want to go into VSCS-III allowing that. So there may be some stuff on the main menu where you can launch into essentially mod tools. Again, this might not make it into the final game. I might cut this, but it will probably be a suite of tools, at least for myself, in builds of the game around the middle and end of development, so that I don't have to keep switching tools. I can essentially build content for the game inside of the game. I think that would be really cool. So that's about it. Let's create saves in all the slots. You can see a bunch of bright green, hooray. And then if we want to load into save 1, we can hit continue. Ta-da, we are in save 1. You can see the fancy new settings icon that I don't think was there in the last video. And I could go back to the main menu. And I can load into save 2. And there's nothing particularly interesting because I am going to save the discussion about the state, like saving the state of the game and the settings and a bunch of other stuff for a separate video. This is just about the main menu. And then in addition to that, you will notice that if I say deleted all these, it would say select a file. If I select one, it changes the text. If I start a new game, it changes the buttons. So essentially every input just has to change the state of this page and make sure that it's displaying what it's supposed to and handling edge cases like, hey, if you have this save and you delete it, you need to update this text, you need to update what these buttons look like, and you need to get rid of this icon because there's actually not a save selected anymore. Ta-da! I don't think that's particularly exciting, but this is the kind of stuff that I've been doing, just kind of polishing that up. Again, I've said it probably 100 times in these videos already. I'll say it 100 more times. There are so many little things that you have to consider in user interface programming that you take for granted like crazy. And I don't want you to take them for granted. I want you to click on buttons on a website or a video game and be like, somebody put blood, sweat, and tears into this, and I appreciate it. Because, I don't know, it's kind of fun in its own way, but it's stressful and it's easy to break. So, hey, I'm so proud of all this nonsense. Anyways, I think this is a shorter one than usual. I hope it was kind of interesting. Like I mentioned, the next video, I'm going to talk a bit more about the architecture of the save system and how this actually works. Like, how am I creating a file in my actual, app data folder when I click that button, and when I click this button, how am I deleting it? And what's the best way to design for that, and how is this data persisting across scenes into the actual game. I'm going to discuss that a bit more in the future, which might be a little more technical, but I will have diagrams, which I have already made. Look forward to it. All right, that's about it. I'm just rambling at this point. Stay safe, stay warm, have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.